Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. We'd like to thank you all for joining us. Hey, there's a lot of things going on in the news. We'd like to share it with you. We want to show you our perspective with you. We want to give you the inside, the outside, the upside, the downside, everything. We want to flip it inward and flip it back outward so that you can understand everything that's going on. But I want to let you know, as the show comes on, we're experiencing, as always, technical difficulties. And let me tell you what the technical difficulties are as we speak today, okay? And the technical difficulties are this. We had this show actually scheduled for tomorrow, okay? It was actually scheduled for tomorrow, but I kept getting alerts that it was scheduled for today. And every time I tried to change the scheduling, I could not, okay? So I rolled with the punches, and I did the best that I could, and I came on live anyhow because our guest is supposed to be on tomorrow. But I contacted him, right? And he said, give him 10 minutes and he'll be able to join us. So this show that we're doing today, we're going to do it an impromptu show for you. And this is called America's Imperial Decline. That's the show that we're doing today, okay? We're going to talk about a lot of issues that are going on in America. We're going to talk about a lot of things, her policies. We're going to talk about her geopolitics. We're going to talk about her declining stature economically, politically, and what we see with the growing divide and the growing gulf between what is real and what is unreal, especially when it comes to the markets and especially when it comes to her newscast, because the news of America is detached from reality. Now, we're having delays also on the clocks. So I'm looking at this clock, right? Let's see, I should say right here. And the clock is being delayed on my end. You can't see the clock, but I can. And also in the introduction of the show, the countdown froze. So that's why there was a little stagnant moment right there. Countdown froze. So when the countdown was over, right, it's showing me the countdown is coming, going down, then it freezes. And all of a sudden it freezes again. Then I'm live. So these are the things we have to go through to get you the news. But again, I am your host, Rashid, and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. So we're going to begin and we're going to talk about this thing that is going on with the markets and how they're going to have devastating effects to the way that you are, well, I should say they were going to have devastating effects to your perception of what is reality. Because when these markets crash and when America is exposed, which she is now being exposed to be the greatest and the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, as she antagonizes her financiers, which are her enemy, her stated enemy, which is crazy to me, which I'll bring up. Your standard of living, your life, and the things that you have been accustomed to will change on such a scale that it will be biblical and it will be unimaginable. See, right now you can go to the stores, and even though the stores are having shortages, you can go to the stores and you can have a pick of an array of or an assortment of food. You can go in there, and even though the prices are becoming detached from reality and you're paying more for less, you can still go to the store at this moment on multiple stores. You can go to multiple stores and you can, I just got a message from Charles. Give me 1 second, okay? Okay, he's now. So he should be coming in just a second. So you can go into multiple stores and look at multiple or an array of different products. And even though it costs you more to get those products, you still have some semblance of what America, being the hegemon of the world and having that privileged status as having the dollar as the world's reserve currency, you still can benefit off of that. But when nations when nations start rejecting her dollar, which they are doing, and when the nations start forming their own alliances, which they are doing, you have the Eurasian Economic Union, you have the BRICS, you have the Belt and Road Initiative, right? You have the ASEAN or Asian, ASEAN. You have the African Trading Bloc, which is the second largest trading bloc in the world. You have even the European nations with the EU have their own trading bloc. You have the South American trading bloc. These nations are now starting to move away from the dollar because America is so used to being able to export inflation. See, that's why the living standard was different here. It was due to the fact that America, being the privileged nation and having the status of world reserve currency and global hegemon, she was able to export inflation to other nations. And she can cause instability and riots in other nations through her Federal Reserve and her monetary policy. Okay? And now the blowback is extreme because nations are getting fed up with that. And so you see a great movement around the world to rid themselves of the dollar. Okay? And this movement is now exploding due to the fact that America is now alienating her allies and her enemies alike. There's a drag in the show, so they do everything they can to stop this. But we're going to continue, okay? And so Mr. Charles Dunaway said that he's ready for the show. And so he should be here. So there is a lag behind also with them. I don't know what's going on, but we're having technical difficulties as always when we do this show. But we're going to continue to move on. I want to bring something and I want to play something for you, okay? I played it on an older show, but I want to play something to you. And while this is playing, keep in mind that the American population, the American Republic, is in such a desperate time, economically, politically, and geopolitically, specifically economically at this moment, that she is now alienating, as I said, her friends and her enemies, which is crazy, which is helping to seal her coffin economically and politically and geopolitically. Now I'm going to go back to something, and I want you to pay close attention to this, all right? As we play this clip, hopefully Mr. Dunaway will be able to be allowed to come on the show, because I'm looking at us and I'm seeing me in the cameras, and there's a lag behind what I'm saying and a lag behind what is going on with what you see. So please have patience, and if you get dropped, come back on. I know how they're doing it. They do it to my other show, so I'm used to dealing with it. But I want you to pay close attention to this clip that I've played, and I'm going to play it again for you. And then we'll go into something else.
And author Chris Hedges argues that the nation is at the precipice of an emerging dystopia. And overseeing this descent at the highest levels of government is a motley collection of imbeciles, con artists, thieves, opportunists, and warmongering generals. Chris is a graduate of Harvard Divinity School, a former war correspondent, and author of 11 books. I am pleased and honored that he joins me now on Contact to discuss his latest work. Hello, Chris.
Thank you.
And it's a pleasure to see you again.
Thanks. Don't do too good a job.
Well, well, I really can't help it with such an excellent book. And this is certainly long overdue. You write that short of a sudden and widespread popular revolt, the collapse of the American empire appears unstoppable, meaning that the United States as we know it will no longer exist within a decade or at most two. That's a very narrow window.
Well, all the signs are there. Roughly 70% of the American population living in severe economic distress, the complete paralyzation of the political system. It's been captured by this corporate cabal and redirected all of the institutions and mechanisms of government to their own enrichment and consolidation of power, the burlesque that now takes the place of the political process, especially the electoral process, the burlesque, which takes the place of the news on CNN, which it's all about revenue. It's not about news anymore. It's that fusion of entertainment, or I would say the masquerading of entertainment, trivia, celebrity gossip as news, and the deindustrialization of the country, which has left the management of the country's wealth in the hands of global speculators on Wall Street, who either hoard the money or inflict severe debt peonage on the public in order to, it's just gambling. And so the New York Times the other day had an article about the next bubble being the fracking industry, because so much in terms of investments is going in and so little is coming out, and it's all on potential profit, not on profit, like the dot-com bubble or the housing bubble, and of course we have student debt
credit
as well.
default swaps.
Right. So all of the signs are there, coupled with the retreat into magical thinking, the inability of the population to grapple with where they are, to grapple with climate change, and all of the climate change reports are quite clear that the process is accelerating far faster than any of the climate scientists predicted. And finally, the military adventurism, mismanagement, 17 years of warfare, wasting of trillions of dollars as the country, the infrastructure of the country crumbles. So all the signs are there.
So, Mr. Hedges, Chris Hedges, he laid out some facts regarding the state of American affairs, and they are dreadful when the American populace look at it. And I think that's why there's such a big or a bad state or a mad state of cognitive dissonance, and how Americans try to detach themselves from the reality of what is taking place in America. They, as long as they benefited from the American policies of her hegemonic policies and her policies to push forward a full spectrum dominance over the entire globe, it was okay. But now that the blowback effect is happening, and people are fed up with America interfering into their domestic policies. They're tired of the sanctioning whenever you disagree with her. They're tired of America going and sitting warships and warplanes and war materials on their borders and on the coasts of on the lands. So now there's a profound blowback effect, and the American populace is trying to disassociate itself. Even though they have been the beneficiaries of these policies, they are trying to disassociate themselves with the policies of the empire. And so this is one of the death kneels into the coffin of the empire. Hedges talked about, because the population does not want to accept the reality of the decline and the fall of the American superpower. And this goes hand in hand with Joe Biden as he steps into office. And we know that he's in office, and his policies are such a manner that they are causing a dramatic disenchantment with America all around the globe. It's just like with his predecessor, Donald Trump. It's the whole world, they're fed up. They're fed up. And so they're forming their own economic blocks. They're forming their own political blocks. They're forming their own geopolitical blocks. And the blowback effect is such a way that as it starts to mount back here within America's own borders, you're going to see a growing racial divide, which you are now seeing. You're going to see a growing political divide, which you are now seeing. You're going to see a call for insurrection and civil war because of the blowback of American policy. Now, the people who really want, who see this stuff going on, and they see the American Republic falling, and they're calling for the overthrow of their government, right? These were some of the greatest beneficiaries. I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying some of them were the greatest beneficiaries of American power. And so we see this is causing a great divide politically, right? I'm telling you, I'm getting a phone call at the same time as I'm talking to you all. I want to go to an article, so bear with me, okay? There's an article on on the Economic Collapse blog. The Economic Collapse blog. So bear with me. All right. And in this article, there are multiple articles, but in this article, this was written September 17th, 2021 by Michael Snyder. Okay. And in this article, and I may put it up on the screen, I'm having difficulties with the internet here. We have excellent internet coverage, so we know it's not on our end. And the signal keeps going up and down, up and down. And this is to throw you off and to cause a disassociation from me talking to you and from the time you hearing it. See, and I'm looking at it now, it's doing it again. But we're gonna power through this, and we're gonna get these facts out, even if we have to do the show tomorrow also, okay? But I want you to listen to this article. It says here, liquidity injects like a drug, and the financial markets just can't get enough of them. But as they were endlessly juicing the stock market, officials at the Federal Reserve broke one of the cardinal rules of drug dealing. Stop right there. Stop right there. So for years, I have been telling the whole world, me, myself, I've been telling the whole world that America's economic policies are like the crackhead or the drug dealer starting to smoke his own and trying to deceive the entire world that he is prosperous, even though those who have eyes are looking at him and saying, man, this guy's not as sharp as he used to be. He doesn't have the money that he once had. He doesn't have all the fine cars and homes that he once had. And he's trying to tell you and put over on you, but you see, your reality is that he is no longer that well-off person. But he is trying to tell you, don't believe your lying eyes, believe me, right? I'm not smoking my dope, even though I'm living in abandoned buildings, and I'm begging you for 50 cents here and begging that person for 50 cents over there and begging that person for 50 cents over there. And when I beg me about 100 people, I have enough money to go get me some more dope. This will help me prolong my binge on dope. This is what the American policies financially are, and militarily, but specifically right now, we're talking about financially. Her Federal Reserve and her Treasury Department are issuing unlimited debt. They call it quantitative easing. They call it QE, right? But let's go further, because this is very important for you to see the state, the mental state of those who govern you. And remember, regardless of what, whoever controls the money controls the politics. And whoever controls the politics controls the war machine, right? But listen, let's go further. It says this, but as they were endlessly juicing the stock market, officials at the Federal Reserve broke one of the cardinal rules of drug dealing. You never get high on your own supply, as I've been telling you all for roughly 12 years on the air. All right, this is what it says. It turns out that quite a few of the big dogs over at the Federal Fed have very large investments, which greatly benefited from all of the cash that the Federal Reserve was endlessly pumping into the markets. If that sounds extremely corrupt to you, that is because it is extremely corrupt. And it is another example that shows why the Federal Reserve should be completely abolished. Stop right there. We go back to something Mr. Chris Hedges said. The corruption, the ineptitude, it is what is helping to cause the fall of the American Republic and the fall of the American empire globally. Okay, so we're getting a good understanding, a deep understanding of what we should expect with the unhinged policies of those who are in power. Okay, let's go a little further. Earlier this week, the entire nation was stunned when the news of this scandal first started to break. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell directed staff to review the central bank's ethics rules for appropriate financial activities after disclosures that several senior central bank officials made multiple multi-million-dollar stock trades in 2020, while others held significant investments. That sounds really bad, right? But then more of the specific details started coming out, and it got even worse. Powell held between 1.25 million and 2.5 million of municipal bonds and family trusts, over which he is said to have no control. They were just a small portion of his total reported assets. While the bonds were purchased before 2019, they were held while the Fed last year bought more than 5 billion in munis, including one from the state of Illinois purchased by his family trust in 2016. Now what's the significance of this? Let me give you an example. It is Catamount to the farmer asking the fox to guard the hen house, right? And the fox sits there and says, yes, I'll make sure no wild animals come and eat the chickens, and I'll make sure no wild beasts even approach this area. And as soon as the farmer lays down his gun and goes in the house, the fox destroys the hen house and takes the hens for his own supper. That's what that is. The corruption is astonishing, because not only is Powell heavily invested in a corrupted financial scheme, so is Nancy Pelosi, so are almost all of the people in Congress. They have huge portfolios of all of these companies. Matter of fact, some of the biggest holders in Northrop Grumman and all of these are people who were once generals or held high positions in the government. This is a corrupted system from the top to the bottom, from the bottom to the top. And now the corruption is feeding it upon its own self. Because remember, this is a beast. The capitalistic system that America runs is a beast, and it must have more debt. And it must have more debt. It must feed upon more debt to keep the situation going. It has to do this. It has to do this. It has to do this. And if it does not have more debt, boom, it implodes. So knowing that, and knowing that is the basis of the system to continue to produce debt and to consume the debt and continue to consume more and more debt, I want to ask you a question. How rational is it? Because this should shine light on those whom you claim to vote into office. Because, you know, a lot of you like this political system, and you believe that if you put this person or that person in the office, things will change. But I want to run something by you. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I'm not the butter knife either. Now, as we talk on these things, and we see that it's corruption from the head to toe, from the toe to the head, or like they used to say, from the rooter to the tutor. How sound are the policies of the policymakers, and how sound is their judgment and their thoughts if they antagonize the very people whom they expect to buy their debt? Because remember, the system cannot continue without the printing of more or the issuing of more debt. How sound can one be if you alienate the very people who you hope to buy your debt to extend the life of your system or your republic or your global order? How sound is that? I'm asking you, because a lot of us, we don't put that to heart. We don't take that and ponder over that. Now I want you to, China is holding over $1 trillion in US debt, right? And holding trillions upon trillions in its currency basket, right? In this, what they call foreign currency reserves. But one day I'm going to talk about that, because I don't think that they're holding that in such a way that the people have explained to you, because it would be almost suicide for them to hold it that way. And I don't think the Chinese are stupid. But let's just look at this, because recently we've heard about the second largest real estate group in China almost defaulting on debt, and this made the rounds on all of the YouTube channels, all of the investment pages, and they're talking about China is about to default. They didn't say the real estate company in China. They put this on China's back, the government of China, and all of this, right? They don't say when all of these other companies in America default. They don't say, and you don't see this in the news. They don't say, well, Bank of America is defaulting, so the entire nation of America is defaulting, right? They don't tell you that. They don't say that. But the way that the media frame things, it would make you to believe that the government of China is insolvent. Okay, but I'm going to bring something. I'm going to read something by you, and I see we have comments and stuff. What is the possible solution? We're going to get to that. Okay. I think the Deuce 09. You asked what is the possible solution? Okay, we'll get to that. Listen, but I'm making a point here. But I'm glad you gave your thoughts on this, and you're asking what is the solution. You can get to the solution. You have to look at the problem. They don't come with treatments just off the whim. The way they come up with treatments for illnesses and ailments is they examine the problem. Okay? And I don't care how many prescriptions that they give you, if you don't follow the prescriptions the way they say, or you don't follow the recommended medical advice, the ailments or the disease does not go away. Okay? As a matter of fact, you can make it worse. So let's look at this. Let me address something before we, because he or she asked a good question. Now, but I'm getting to something. China has trillions of dollars in currency reserve, and some estimates that China has roughly between, even though officially they have less than 3,000 or 4,000 tons of gold, most estimates put China's gold holdings between 20 and 40,000 tons of gold, which is amazing. And this has everything to do with the situation in America. And they have huge holdings of silver also. This is why they started the Shanghai gold exchange. They wanted something to rival the London and the US exchanges, which manipulated gold prices and manipulated gold and gave the Western world dominance over that, which means they had dominance economically over other nations' policies and economies. Okay, but let's look at this. Since the media puts it that China is defaulting, there's a law. When this universe was laid at the base of the law, of the universe, there's a law which permeates, whether it's from the bacterial or microbial area up until the animal kingdom of man. All right, the highest, which is man. Okay, and the law is self-preservation. It's the first law of nature, right? So let's just take the perspective of the Western news, okay? And we'll say that these companies or corporations are about to default in China. Well, if they are about to default in China and America owes China, guess who's going to be on the hook for it? I'm asking you to look at this rationally, because the propaganda, they continue to inundate us with propaganda, and sometimes we can't see through the fog. So let's put it like this. You and I borrow money from you, and I signed this certificate saying that, listen, I owe you this, and if I don't pay you this, when you call in this debt, I agree to transfer ownership of my house to you, or my car to you, or whatever of value I have to you. Okay, that's what they call a promissory note. Okay, this is what the bonds pretty much are. So you're going to lend to me this money so that I can pay my bills and extend my livelihood, and I've agreed to pay you back with tangible goods or tangible assets. And I must pay you back when this debt is supposedly called, okay? Now, if you loan me and you loan me and you loan me, and I'm mismanaging my money constantly, and you are going through something now in your life where the money may be a little short, and you're facing, and you have a family, and you're facing the reality of maybe your lights may be cut off. But you know, hold up, I got this promissory note here. Rashid owes me money. So I'm not that much bad off. So I'm going to call in the debt. Before I collapse, you're going to collapse. Because the law that is at the base of the universe is a law of self-preservation. And China is no different. So this is left out of all of the media talk. This gets out of all of the talk about finances or political or geopolitical talk. If I'm owing you money and your livelihood and the livelihood of your family is at stake, you're going to call in that debt. Before you default, you'll make me default. Is that not right? All right. Why is that so hard to comprehend? So there's structural corruption in America. Deduce 09 asked the question. So what is the possible solution? Because this goes to the very root and bone of America, and because it is in all of the institutions of America, and because no matter who comes to office, they continue with the economic, political, and geopolitical policies, the solution is the uprootment of the current system. You got to start from scratch. You got to rid yourself of it. And you have to rid those who were of the system of it, right? Right? You cannot rid the institutions and leave the people who benefited from the institution, or the people who promoted the institution, or the people who read the policies of the institution. Because even if you remove the institutions and you leave those people in power, or those people are able to regain power, guess what they're going to do? They're just going to rebuild the mold. They're just going to redo it over and over again because they were the beneficiary. They may tweak it a little bit. They may tweak it here and tweak it there. But guess what? It's still going to be basically the same system. And this system is a predatory system, okay? It is inherently predatory. That's what the base, if you don't think it's predatory, all one has to do is look at its founding. They preyed upon the indigenous people of the land. They preyed upon the indigenous people from Africa, South America, Central America. The system is like that. It is inherently like that. And now it is just out in the open for everyone to see. I'm not making anything up. If Deduce, if you think that what I'm saying is wrong, I'm willing for you to prove it. I'm not confrontational. I just want you to see that we have come to such a I would call it a tipping point or inflection point. I did a show on my other show years ago called The Inflection Point. I was talking about this very moment, that America was coming, she was going to come face to face with this very moment, the inflection point. And now she has to, and instead of her making amends for the stuff she speaks it, but look at what they're doing in their policies. Look at what they're doing about, as Joe Biden was at the United Nations, and he was speaking about ending forever wars and trying to move towards unilateralism instead of multilateralism instead of unilateralism. And then you look at him and how America is illegally bombing and occupying Syria. They're illegally bombing and occupying Iraq. There's still some in Afghanistan. They're still in South America. They're still in European nations against the wishes of them. The Japanese, the World War II ended decades ago. We still have 25% of the islands of Okinawa under occupation. They have a dozen military bases in South Korea, right? They are trying to rebase themselves in Central Asia. How can something be different if your actions are still the same? I can tell you, if I'm a thief and I'm a murderer, I can tell you whatever I want to tell you. I can tell you, hey, I don't steal no more. I'm not killing no more. I've changed. And as soon as you go to the bathroom and you come back, I say, listen, I got to go somewhere. And then you say, okay, I'll talk to you later. And then when I'm gone, you say, I know I left my wallet. I know I left my wallet on the table with thousands of dollars in it. My wallet. Only you and I were there. And then you go to the back room and you find your family members murdered or brutalized. And I am the common denominator for all of this. I can tell you what I want to, but my actions will show you who I am, right? So basically what I'm saying is America's talking, but in reality, she really is not doing nothing, but continuing her hegemonic move. She's surrounding nations. She's threatening people. Look at this. She'll fly her warships close to Russia or close to China. China or Russia will respond by deploying air assets on their coast. Then America's media will report it and say that Russia or China were they were provocative with their aerial maneuvers. Then you say, well, where did this take place? Oh, it was an international airspace. Well, where is this international airspace? A few miles from Russia's borders, a few miles from China's borders. The policy of the hegemon, the policies of an arrogant hegemon, is causing her to decline and fall because she is alienated her friends and those whom she deemed enemies. Think of, as I was saying at the beginning of the show, and I was sidetracked, but I'm coming back to this. I want you to think about the lunacy of this. 90, some estimates say 93, some estimates say upwards to 97% produced and placed on American shelves are produced in China, or China has some hand in it. All right, microchips and boards that go into computers and go into all of America's sophisticated war machines. A majority comes from China. China is in control of the rare earth minerals that America receives. All right, China holds a huge portion of American debt. All right. Now I want you to see the lunacy of this, because sometimes we can, as I say, we refuse to think and see through the fog. I'm saying I want better relations with you, yet I'm supplying a part of your nation with weapons to try to secede from your sovereignty. Now, some of you have problems with this when I'm talking about Chinese Taipei, which is Taiwan. And they said, well, Taiwan is a democratic nation. No, Taiwan, according to America's own laws, is considered to be part of China. They call it the One China policy. And America continues to sell weapons to Taiwan and continues to hold diplomatic relations with Taiwan outside of Beijing's approval. Now, mind you, I want you to keep in mind what I just told you about the production of goods and services that come from China to America, the holding of the debt, all of the other stuff that comes with it. Okay. Now, what if China did that with California, or those little militias that are springing up all across America because they're so bad about American politics that they're talking about seceding from the Union? Do you think that America would allow that to happen? then why is it okay for America to do it? Some of you don't want to acknowledge this, so you justify it because you believe in America's exceptionalism when she's only really one of many nations. So if the policymakers have a coherent way of thinking and issue coherent policies, how is it that you can recognize Taiwan to be a part of China, an indispensable part of China, and at the other hand, send warships and war material to Taiwan to secede from China, and then give it political covering, and at the same time go over to mainland China and say we need to talk. Tensions are being raised, and we need to down the tensions a little bit, and we need to go about trading with each other. How the hell is this even rational in the minds of anyone? I'm asking you these things. See, what I present before the people is common sense. And common sense is not so common today, especially in America, because we're so used to being patted on our backs. We're so used to being told that you're the greatest, or you're the best, you're this and that. But when you dive into it and you slice through all the layers, you find out that the onion is still an onion, right? And so, regards to the propaganda, America is still an empire. And she is a racist, lying empire, because her wars have been unjust. And even those in power after years come to acknowledge that, oh yeah, we lied about this. Oh yeah, we thought about that. Oh yeah, we shouldn't have done this. Oh yeah, but what the hell? Hundreds of thousands of people are dead. People are uprooted. I want to put something on your mind. Do you see what's going on at the southern border? How they're treating the Haitians, right? I'm just going to address this. How they have horse sheriffs and border patrols on horses, and how they're treating the Haitians, right? And this is no dig to the Cubans, because they don't do the Cubans like that. But as a matter of fact, they got a law that if you make it to America from Cuba, you get to stay. But my point is this: why did the Haitians start coming to America like that? And why are they coming through the Mexican border or through the southern border? When Haiti, right, it's not, here's America, here's Mexico, right here. And Haiti is over here. How are they getting there? I'm asking. How are they getting there? So that's something to ponder over, but I want to get to a more specific point about the Haitians, because this goes right along with the influx of refugees in Europe that Europe is disgusted about. Why are the Haitians doing it, and why are they doing it right now? Because America helped assassinate the president of Haiti. America is responsible for the turmoil. America, France, and England, they're responsible for the turmoil in Haiti. They're responsible for the politics in Haiti. So the people, in words, have a right to come here, because you were the one who caused instability in the country. You are the ones who are preventing them from accessing their own mineral wealth. You are the ones who are flying narcotics from Afghanistan to different points of Africa and using Haiti as the trading post or the dispenser, the warehouse to traffic it, the opium, all across the Western Hemisphere. So you are the source of the instability of Haiti, and yet you're crying that Haitians are running to America. The same goes with the European Union and how they're crying and moaning over African migrants coming there, and how they're really lashing out against the influx of Libyan refugees. You're the one bombed them. You bombed them. Libya was the most prosperous nation on the Mediterranean under Muammar Gaddafi. You bombed it and turned it back to the Stone Age. And the people are trying to get out of there because it's chaos and havoc there. And your economic policies are preventing them from having a sense of economic independence. And yet you're crying that they're coming to your border. Do you not see the insanity of this policy? This is what is going on. This is the Western world. They break a thing and then they cry after they break it because it cut them. They go in the kitchen that doesn't belong to them and throw all of the glasses and plates around, breaking them on the floor. And then when they step in that kitchen and they get cut by the broken glass, they are whining and moaning that it's broken glass on the floor. That's insanity. And this is why the policies of America and the policies of Europe is coming back, blowing back on them. And that's why they want to demonize nations that are pulling away economically and politically, because without Africa, I did an article called Africa is the Key. That's why you see China going in. That's why you see Russia going in. Russia has a few bases across the northern horn of Africa. And Russia is now investing in Africa. And Europe, being a colonial, the European nations being colonial nations, they think that they are entitled to be there and to take whatever they want. And so America, the same. So there's a lot of influx and instability of terrorists around there, because the grand scramble is for Africa, because Europe has little to no resources or mineral wealth. And so they need that. That's the mammary gland for Europe and America, but specifically Europe. So they benefit from the instability in Africa. They benefit from the instability in Central Asia, because then they can go in and then under the auspices of fighting terror, they go in there and they siphon off illegally the mineral wealth or the oil or the gas. Look what America is doing in Syria. Set up a base in her fertile resource area where there's gas and oil, and now America controls 90% of the gas and oil in Syria, and they are loading trucks up daily, running them from Syria up into Iraq and transporting them out, right? And then they're putting them on ships, and some of them are shipping them to Israel and around the globe and making a penny off of it, and nobody says a word. But America is doing this under fighting ISIS, a group that she put together. Sounds familiar? Huh? Well, it should, because America did the same thing with the so-called Mujahideen or the Taliban. It was a big new Brzezinski who put that together, the group that you call Al-Qaeda. And then he wants to cry. Well, we lost 3,000 people on 9/11, which I'm not putting down the loss of life, okay? I'm putting it in a real term. So you lose 3,000 people because of your policy, your covert policies that the people at home were not aware of. And then you use that to play on the people at home's emotion so that you can go and do what you already had planned to do, which was to go over there in Central Asia, to put military bases there and to extract as much mineral wealth as you can, regardless to the high cost of the lives of the people and the stability of those governments. Do you believe, I'm asking you all this, do you believe that that kind of policy can go on in perpetuity? If there's a semblance, and I'm talking to the Christians, I'm talking to the Muslims, I'm talking to everybody who has a religion, who has any ink of understanding about the laws of cause and effect, karma, judgment, or whatever. There's an old saying that what goes around comes around, right? And science puts it like this: any force is met with an equal or greater any action is met with an equal or greater reaction, right? So if that is the case, and your actions has caused the instability of countless and numerous nations around the globe, and not just for 1 year, but since you've been in existence, do you believe that you are the exception to the laws of nature when it says that there must be an equal or greater reaction to the actions that you took? we need to ponder over these things. We stop all of this foolishness thinking that you are exempt from this stuff. Stop all this foolishness because you are not exempt to this stuff. And so many things are going on that will prove to you that the time that we're living in is a time of a world being removed, a political system being removed. And this is why you hear America, Britain, France, and European nations always use code word. It's racist. But they'll say the international order. If you don't agree with them, they'll say this person is isolated from the civilized world, or these nations are trying to challenge, right, the rules of the global order or the international order, or, you know, or the rules-based order, right? And trying to set up something new because they understand. They understand where we at in time. People are fed up. Black people are fed up. White people are fed up. Brown people are fed up. Red people, yellow people. Everybody is fed up with the policies of America and Europe. Even Europeans and Americans are fed up with it. This is why you see the outbursts of protest. This is why you see the violence here. What you're seeing in America and in Britain mirrors their policies geopolitically. The people around the world that they're affecting are protesting and fighting back, and now it has come back home to roost. We're looking at the collapse of the Western world, or what they call the rules-based order. And the rules that they're talking about, the world is based on, is the rule, and don't get mad, of white privilege, exceptionalism, right? And do as we say and not as we do, right? This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And they see, look at how they're dealing with China. Okay, I just want you to look at this. As long as China was in a subservient position to America, everything was kosher, everything was good, everything was halal, right? As soon as China rose to a position to challenge America, not just economically, but politically and militarily, America goes out to try to sabotage her rise. She tries to put military bases to prevent China's breakout capacity. And she talks about an aggressive China. Isn't that the same language she used against Russia as America expanded her NATO bases up to Russia's border? An aggressive Russia, right? See, these are code terms, code words from the hegemon who sees a threat from somebody. And that's what we're looking at. The Western world sees China as a threat because it is a non-white nation that has grown to a level of peer strategic competitor of the global hegemon. China is no longer in a subservient position. China is in to me, a dominant position, because not only has China risen to the occasion economically with America, but in some ways she's outstripped America economically and politically. And guess what? Militarily, China is outstripping America. She's outstripping them with what? She has the largest navy in the world. You wouldn't think about that. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, China was a land power. A land power. Now she's about to be the largest air force in the world. She has the largest army in the world. She does not just have quantitative weaponry, which means a whole lot of weapons that really don't mean nothing, but she has qualitative weaponry, which means they're of higher equal quality of the West, or higher quality. China has already fielded their second hypersonic missile. America has not even fielded one. And so the Western world sees this as a strategic threat, because if they see a non-white or Western nation rise up that can challenge them, it's a threat to their global order. So they say rules-based order. What are some of the rules? The rules is that you follow what England and America and Europe says. And if you don't follow that, you become a pariah state in that area. But here's the kicker here. There's 7-8 billion people on the planet, right? And the Western world doesn't even comprise 40% The Western world does not comprise 40% of the global population of the planet Earth, and they're always talking about somebody's isolated. I bring these facts up to you because I want you to think outside the box of so-called mainstream media, and I want you to also think outside the box of so-called alternative media, because most alternative media is plants from government and from institutions and from think tanks and from anyone that will go so far to challenge the order of the Western world. They will challenge it to up to a certain extent, and then they will lead you astray on certain things. And we're not going to do that. We're going to give you the truth, and we're going to give it to you in such a way that makes you say, you know what? Even if I don't agree with that, that is a good point. I never looked at it like that. I should be thinking about things more in depth than what I am. Because mark my words, we're at a time now where you will regret not analyzing what's going on and just being spoon-fed by Fox News and CNN and MSNBC and Alex Jones and all of these people who have an agenda. Right? They have an agenda because they see everything slipping away from them, and it's never their fault. It's never America's fault. It's never the Western world's fault. It's always those people who they have victimized. So it's their fault. You know what that is tantamount to? That is the rapist and the murderer blaming the victim for being raped or murdered. That's the policy of the West. And believe me, if you do not detach yourself from that, you will get the blowback of what's coming to the Western world. On that note, I'm going out the same way I came in. In the name of God, I salute you all. I love you. Until tomorrow, we'll try to have a live stream tomorrow. Mama, I love you, and I love everybody who's listening. Peace.